Hey everyone, welcome to Riffin with HB. We do a show on Saturdays where we talk about old school and underrated bands and try to bring it to the masses. Today we're talking about Three Doors Down. We were gonna do Paramore, I mentioned in the last episode, but I switched it to Three Doors Down due to Brad's passing recently. I should also mention that next Saturday we'll be covering the band Cake due to the founding member of Cake passing. So as usual, we'll go ahead and get into the facts of the band, and then afterwards we'll kind of give a little bit of my rendition of it, if you will. And thank you guys for joining in. Let's go ahead and just get right into it. And it's kind of sad. We've had a lot of, quote unquote legends. Definitely in my mind, for sure, passed away recently. Ozzy Osbourne, and over the past few years, I guess me and my buddy were talking about it. It's to the point because a lot of these bands that we're covering, they're from the '60s and '70s. So time goes on, as they say. This band, obviously, um, Brad was much younger whenever he passed away. He passed away due to cancer. This band formed in 1996, so we're way outside of the 60s and 70s now. I think the latest band we covered was the Cars, maybe. Um, let's see here, just so I don't speak out of pocket. I think the Cars is the oldest band so far that we covered, and not even in the 80s, really, with the Cars. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Three Doors Down, they were from Escataba. I hope I'm saying this. Escatapa, Mississippi. Yeah, Escatapa, Mississippi. There we go. Um, and the origin, the name Three Doors Down, it comes from um, a broken sign that they saw in Foley, Alabama, that originally read "Doors Down," quote unquote. And then the band had three members at the time, the original lineup. So they added three to the phrase, and they chose the name in 1996 whenever they began touring. They were already a band for a few years, technically, but they were actually first signed to Universal Records. um, so yeah, Three Doors Down. They released six studio albums in their career, starting with their debut album, "The Better Life" in 2000. The band members Brad Arnold lead vocals, who recently just passed away. Matt Roberts on lead guitar and backing vocals. Todd Harrell on bass. Chris Henderson rhythm and backing. And he joined shortly after the band formed, so technically not an original member of the band. Was there from the very beginning. Um, he's actually the only original remaining member. That's one other thing I want to mention as well about that. Okay, I got some notes on my phone. I'm going to read from Wikipedia articles and such like that, and then I'll read some notes that I've written down speaking about the band. I'll come back to that. Actually, I have a chart here that shows the band members and when they were active from, just to give everybody in the band respects. I like to do that. And let's go ahead and get into it. I'm going to repeat a couple of things that I've already mentioned so far. Three Doors Down is an American rock band formed from Escataba, Mississippi. Formed in 1996, the band's founding members were Brad Arnold, lead vocals, Matt Roberts, lead guitar and backing vocals, Todd Harrell, bass guitar. Those are the original members, and the band's music combines post-grunge, hard rock, and alternative rock. Definitely an iconic sound of the 90s, and we'll get into that in a little bit. They achieved mainstream popularity with their debut album, 2000 debut album, the debut single, Kryptonite, which we all know. If you know the band Three Doors Down, is probably how you know them. Which peaked 3 on the Billboard Hot 100. The song preceded their debut album, The Better Life, which came out again in 2000, which became the 11th best-selling album of that year. Actually, Linkin Park Hybrid Theory was number 3. I was checking out earlier. I believe Eminem's record was number 1 that year in 2000. It received Subtuple platinum certification by the Recording Industry of America. We've talked about them a little bit. Um, they spawned two additional Billboard Hot 100 entries, Loser and Be Like That. Their second album, Away from the Sun, continued the band's success, debuting number 8 on the Billboard 200 and spawning the Billboard Hot 100 top 5 singles, When I'm Gone and Here Without You. We're going to talk a little bit about those songs whenever um, I'm done reading this at the end of the show here. The band's third album and fourth studio albums were 17 Days and their self-titled fourth album, 2008. Wow, that's weird because normally bands will self-title their first album, so they self-titled their fourth album. I remember reading that earlier. Both debuted aboard the Billboard's Top 200 and received platinum certifications by the IRAA, and the band's fifth album, Time of My Life, peaked at number 3. The band is without any of its 3 founding members, leaving rhythm guitarist Chris Henderson, who joined Three Doors Down in 1998, as I mentioned, the only member of the Better Life lineup remaining. Bassist Todd Harrell left the band in 2013 after vehicular homicide charge, which we'll get into in just a little bit. And guitarist Matt Roberts died in 2016 from a drug overdose, and lead singer Brad Arnold passed away here in February 7th, 2006 from kidney cancer. He had been battling this disease for a while now, so. Let me see here. Three Doors Down, formed in 1996, like I mentioned. This is what I wanted to mention here. While the trio were walking through town of Foley, Alabama, during a trip there, they noticed a building where where some letters had fallen off a sign reading "Doors Down." Since the band consisted of 3 people at the time, they added the number 3 to create Three Doors Down. Arnold wrote the band's breakout hit single "Kryptonite" in high school during math class at age 15, which I've got a clip here in just a little bit. I'll show you him talking about this, how he wrote the song, and we'll kind of talk a little bit more about it. The 3-piece began to record the demo material in 97, and then the demo recording sessions took place at the Hawley House Recording Studio in Mississippi. And the band's demo songs were mixed and recorded by Clyde Hawley, with recordings being released on a self-titled CD in 1997. 1,000 of the copies, this is important here, 1,000 of the copies of the demo CD were released initially, with 1,000 more copies being released 2 years later. When the band gave the CD to a local radio station, WCPR-FM, they started playing the demo recording of Kryptonite, and it became #1 requested song on the station for over 15 weeks. And the station's program director sent the song to manager Finn Daly, who in turn showed it to Bill McGaffey, his employer at D Goot Entertainment. So yeah, there's a clip where I don't have it on here, but him speaking about how that radio play from that one song is what blew them up and got them to the success they are right now. Because they took them 2 years to get rid of 1,000 CDs, but yet within, I think, just a couple months, maybe even a couple weeks, I forget what the number was, but yeah, just a short period of time, they sold this next 1,000 albums, and then they had to, make more and more and more. So, their first studio album, Better Life, was released in 2008, and it went on to become, oh, yep, I already read this part, sorry, rereading. Three Doors Down released their live EP entitled Another 700 Miles, consisting of recordings from a live performance by the band in Chicago, Illinois. Another 700 Miles has since been certified gold in the US, and in addition to featuring some of the Three Doors Down hit singles from their previous 2 albums, the EP also contains a version of the 1977 Lynyrd Skynyrd song That Smell. And the group toured with Nickelback in 2004. I'm going to name drop a lot in here because these guys have toured all over with a ton of different bands. In 2003, they began hosting their annual Three Doors Down and Friends benefit concert through the band's own charity, the Better Life Foundation, which we'll get into in a little bit, and I'll talk more about that. In 2006, this event was held at the Mobile Convention Center with proceeds benefiting Hurricane Katrina survivors. And as residents of Escatawpa in Mississippi, the band members or the members of the band saw the effects of Katrina's devastation. So Hurricane Katrina happened in 2005, I believe it was. Super devastating. So yeah, 2005, because in 2006 the event was held. So yeah, I would imagine it was 2005 or so. By 2005, the band had sold 12,000 albums, and the band's third studio album, 17 Days, was released in 2005 and debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200 charts and has been certified platinum. It contains 5 singles: "Let Me Go," "Behind Those Eyes," which achieved major chart success, "Live for Today," or sorry, "Live for Today," "Landing in London," on which Bob Seger sang for the second verse and provided some backup vocals, some Bob Seger in there as well, and also "Here by Me" oops, during the 17 Days tour. The band had appeared alongside Southern rock band Leonard Skinner, as well as headlining many of their own shows. So Leonard Skinner, there's Bob Seger in there. Um, I have some notes in here talking about how Seven Dust and Creed opening for those bands really kind of set off their careers well, because at the time they had already really established a name for themselves. um, Three Doors Down released their self-titled album on 2008. That was their fourth album and debuted #1 on the Billboard charts, selling 154,000 copies on its first week. It became the band's second consecutive #1 album on the chart, as well as their fourth album to reach the top 10. The album contains the hit singles "It's Not My Time," "Train," "Let Me Be Myself," another great song, "Citizen Soldier," and it was a song written as a tribute to the National Guard. And the album went on to be certified a platinum. In 2009, Three Doors Down, alongside with the Soul Children of Chicago, released a song "In the Presence of the Lord" on the companion album "Oh Happy Day," an all-star music celebration. So cool little fact there. Three Doors Down released their self-titled fourth album on May 2008. They debuted #1 on the Billboard. Oh, sorry, I just read this part. I'll keep rereading it. My bad. Sorry, guys. Um, they released their fifth studio album in 2011. The band had previously released "When You're Young" as a single from the album, and the single reached #81 on the Billboard 100 charts. A second single, "Every Time You Go," was released in 2011, and then the band embarked on the tour of July of 2011 across Europe, United Kingdom, and in support of the album. And the album debuted and peaked #3 on the Billboard 200 charts, which is about 60,000 copies sold in the first week. And the band embarked on a 6-week long Gang of Outlaws tour with headliners including ZZ Top and opener Gretchen Wilson. So another couple name drops there. You got to be good to sing with some of these people. They're not just going to let you open up for them. It's just like the same thing with comedians, right? They're not going to let you just open up for them and not be funny. You have to really bring your A game. Especially what a good band does is they're not egotistical about it. They're not going to put somebody up there lesser than them. They're going to put somebody up there just as good as them or better. That way they have to like really step up their game. On May 23rd, 2012, Matt Roberts announced he was leaving the band to focus on his health. He told the fans in a statement, "Three Doors Down will always have a special place in my heart, and it saddens me to take this time off, but health has to be my first priority." So then guitar Chris Henderson announced on Twitter that his former guitar tech, Chris Roberts, would replace Matt Roberts, or sorry, Chet Roberts would replace Matt Roberts as the lead guitarist. So Three Doors Down went on to with a joint headline tour with U.S. rock band Daughtry in March of 2013. And to promote Daughtry's third studio release album, Daughtry is another name dropper right there. The cover of "In the Air Tonight" was captured and uploaded to Daughtry's official YouTube channel. The band also played the Dubai Jazz Festival in 2013. On 2013, April 20th, the bassist Todd Harrell, he was charged with vehicular homicide, what I was mentioning earlier, for his actions The night before in Nashville, Tennessee, he was reportedly driving on I-40 at high speed while under the influence of prescription medication, while he caused an accident that killed 47-year-old Paul Howard Shoulders Jr. And the judge harshly criticized the musician's doctor in the courtroom, accusing the physician of prescribing Harold far too many pain pills. Harold was charged with bringing controlled substances into a correctional detention facility, and in 2015, Harold was sentenced to 2 years imprisonment, followed by 6 years probation. Still, really, it's crazy. It's crazy. Three Doors Down later announced that the 4 scheduled shows for the U.S. in the U.S. for April and May had been canceled out of respect for Shoulders and his family. Oh, the European tour with the Prime Circle and the summer dates with Daughtry, which had been announced the day after the incident in Nashville, remain intact. Okay. On May 24th, a week before the start of the European tour, Justin Betolden, formerly of the Campaign in 1984, was announced as the band's replacement. So. From the end of 2013 into 14, the band embarked on an acoustic tour entitled Songs from the Basement. And they toured around the U.S. in February. So Tard Harold was arrested in Mississippi once again for DUI. Afterwards, the band released a statement that Harold had preeminently left the band and that they would continue with Justin as his replacement. That's unfortunate. In June, he announced that the band's next album would be entitled Us in the Night. And the album's release date was 2016, March 11th, and the band went on the tour around North American festivals such as the Fort Rock and Carolina Rebellion. Carolina Rebellion's super big where I'm from. I'm born in South Carolina, so that's one of the huge musical events that they do. Three Doors Down toured the UK and Europe with multiple sold-out shows. Former guitarist Matt Roberts died on August 20th, 2016, at the age of 38, pretty young from a prescription drug overdose, unfortunately. Man, these guys, they lived it to the fullest. 2018, the Three Doors Down embarked on the Rock and Roll Express tour with Collective Soul, another name dropper, opening act, Soul Asylum. So Soul Asylum opened on that tour with Collective Soul and Three Doors Down. So again, some of the best bands in the world, and we're going to cover all these bands eventually, right? The tour had shows in 36 cities in the U.S. Goodness. Sorry, I pulled my notes down. They embedded on the Better Life 20th anniversary tour commemorating the 2000 release of their album, and the tour featured a full live performance of the album, and included candle boxes as supporting acts. Sorry, the video that I have here later in the show, it shows the singer from Candlebox and them talking about how he wrote the song Kryptonite. So I'll show that here as soon as I get done reading all this. In 2023, they announced Three Doors Down was announced by the band Creed as a supporting band for their upcoming Summer of '99 tour, along with Daughtry, Switchfoot, Tonic, Big Wreck, and Finger 11. So Creed, another name, like I was saying, Switchfoot, Daughtry. A lot of these bands is what helped them gain their popularity. Summer of '99 tour, which began in Green Bay, Wisconsin, on 2024, July 17th, and continued through December 5th, 2024. So basically all that summer and fall. Pretty neat. All right, we're going to get into Brad's death right now. Brad, he died of cancer of kidney cancer just here recently. And on February 7th, on May 7th, 2005, he announced that he had been diagnosed with stage 4 clear cell renal cell carcinoma. Oh my gosh, I'm not familiar with these terms, but um, a form of kidney cancer essentially, and that he had um, it had metastasized in his lungs. So yeah, he was. I saw an interview where he's talking about this. Basically, that his kidney cancer had collected in his lungs, and that there was really no fighting it. That they were doing everything they could, but it just wasn't working. Um, and as a result, the announcement was made on a video message with the band's official social media platforms, and all scheduled performances were canceled. Arnold stated that "it's not my time," quote unquote, referencing the title of the band's 2008 single, and asked fans for prayers and support. And I'm going to talk about that song actually as well and how it relates to his death. February 7th, 2026, he died from cancer in his sleep, and his death was announced by the band later in the afternoon through the statement on their social media accounts. And it says here that he was paid tribute from the rock music community in his honor, and there's been tons of people who have been writing songs and doing covers and stuff like that to try to, you know, honor him and what he did in his life. So it's really cool. If you guys want to be able to honor him, if you don't do music, the best thing you can do is support somebody that you know that does music, and share their songs for people covering, especially a legend like Brad for sure. Um, and that being said, I do want to talk a little bit about the foundation that he started. Three Doors Down started the Better Life Foundation, in 2020 or 2003, with the goal in mind to give as many children as possible a better life. Since its inception, the Better Life Foundation has supported numerous charities across the U.S., including the Center for Prevention of Child Abuse and the Habitat for Humanity, as well as providing aid and assistance to the Gulf Coast region of Mississippi during Hurricane Katrina. And in 2006, Brad Arnold stated that approximately $900,000 had been raised for the foundation. So just under $1 million, basically. um, when the Mississippi town of Waveland took especially hard hit from Hurricane Katrina, the charity was able to purchase 3 police cars and a fire truck to help with the rescue efforts. And also in connection with Walmart, they were able to supply the town with 3 semi trucks full of rescue supplies. And there was also extensive support from the foundation in providing funding for rebuilding efforts in the town. Three Doors Down and the Better Life Foundation host a yearly show to raise money for charity. Beginning in 2010, the band performed at the Horseshoe Hotel and Casino in Tuckahoe, Mississippi. Prior to 2010, this show was performed at the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Mississippi. And in addition to the concert, the Three Doors Down and Friends, there's also an auction which includes numerous items from the musical Friends, support icons, and other various supporters of the bands and the charity. There's an average of 60 items auctioned off yearly, and the proceeds go to the foundation. As of 2016, the Better Life Foundation and benefit concert has been held at the Haraz Cherokee Casino Resort in Cherokee, North Carolina. And past performers include Leonard Skinner, Shinedown, Alter Bridge, Stain, Hinder, Switchfoot, Tracy Lawrence, Sarah Evans, and others. Some big names there. Past auction includes a Paul Stanley guitar that played on the Kiss farewell tour, pretty cool, and a tour of, a total of 4 Roger Burgett motorcycles. Access to Dale Jr. racing suit and NASCAR artwork by Brad Daly, and numerous signed guitars and sports memorabilia. So it's pretty cool. They've done a lot to support the community, and that's one thing you could hope out of somebody whenever they make it big, is that they actually try to do what they do for good, and really try to use. I mean, you're making millions of dollars selling out all over the world. And if you, it's almost like if you're not doing stuff like this, it's a really question to people's integrity. And if anything's a question to somebody's integrity and the testament of how good a human being like Brad and the band was, um, that's got to be one of the biggest ones right there. Doing stuff whenever you don't have to, meddling where you don't have to be is what the essence of being a hero. So now we got all that. I'm going to go ahead and get into some notes here. Real quick before I do that, I want to pull up this chart here. This while I start talking about this, I'm going to let you guys look at this. This shows the band and the members and where they were active from, um, and then the instruments they played as well. Um, I mentioned about opening for Seven's Dust and Creed and Hinder and all these different bands. Playing with these different bands, opening for them, playing with them, whatever. And I'd like to think that the music scene's changed way more by '96 than it had in the '70s. In the '70s, people were probably staying in their own lane, not because they were forced to, or not because it was by choice, but because there's not really a lot of. You're not going to meet another band member necessarily. You might meet another band because you're in the scene or whatever. But now you have the chance to meet all these different huge bands in the '90s, meeting up with these people who are forming their bands as well. So many '90s bands that we'll cover, and Seven's Dust and Creed and Linkin Park and all these different bands are part of that wave. And Three Doors Down did exactly what the Doors did for the '60s and the '70s to create that sound of the '60s and the '70s and create the whole era, the whole vibe. They did that for the '90s. And he was a poet the way he wrote his songs. A lot of people, lyrics don't really mean much to them, and I can understand that. But what Three Doors Down did is they made great music that if lyrics mean something to you, it's deep enough where you can really look into it. And the song "When I'm Gone," I mentioned earlier, so is a perfect example of that, especially with the visual it creates in your mind, the way it makes you think about the lyrics, what he's saying. Kryptonite is another thing. It's like you're thinking about what he's saying and you're visualizing it in your head. There's like everybody has a way they imagine the song when they're hearing it. Um, there's a video that I watched earlier of him. He spoke about this, how he thinks that people, what's the best advice that he could give to people who are in bands trying to create and write songs today in today's time. Sorry, let me pull me back up right. And the advice that he gave to people who are up and coming band members, like young band members or new band members creating a new band for the first time, is that you should just write with your heart and just create the thing and don't create it like you want people to see it. Create it like you don't care if anyone sees it at all and just let it come out of you. That's perfect. That's exactly what somebody with no ego tries to do. Is like, I don't care if people see me. I'm just going to do this thing. I don't care what people think. It's just like me doing this show. I got a few proud viewers. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Thank you for being here. But even if you guys weren't here, this is the same stuff that I would be doing in my life, researching these bands and figure out about how they got the name of their band. And when they started doing this, it's like my life. So it's the same thing we should do when we write music. And that's what I do whenever I try to write my music. I try to just let life flow through me. It's like a radio tower for the universe, like I described. And Brad mentioned about how some of these songs he didn't write, that they came to him. And I say this with my music as well. Like some of these songs, it's like you're being possessed. Like somebody else is writing this stuff with the pen in your hand, and the universe is just using you to do it because you have a hand and a mind. And I really do think that sometimes there are a few examples where I can really think I had to like craft a song and mold it like a piece of clay, but sometimes it just came to me. And those are some of the better songs that I've ever had. And Kryptonite was that song for them. We'll talk a little bit about that here in just a moment, okay? Loser is another great example of this. The example of he had that song "Loser" is about a friend who was on drugs, and he wasn't calling his friend a loser, but he was basically speaking from the mindset of the friend, telling them that he felt like a loser. But it's a great poetic song, and it really makes you feel, it makes you think. And if you listen to it, you can listen to it, and it's a great song if you don't think about it. But if you do, you're like, oh, it's even a better song. It makes it so much more in depth because it doesn't have to be. It could just be the lyrics could be nonsense, and really, it's the combination of the music and the lyrics together that make a great thing. I mentioned the sound of the '90s, the post grunge, alt rock, and hard rock sound. The super nostalgic for me, 100%. You can also like remember where you were when you heard these songs. Remember where you were sitting at, how old you were, who was around, the vibe. For me, especially, yeah, I was a kid, and yeah, I mentioned this a couple of times. How whenever I was a kid, I didn't have a chronological timeline. So the Rolling Stones were a '90s band to me. I had no idea that they were a '70s band. I didn't know anything about the '70s. I was a kid. So the Rolling Stones and Three Doors Down, they were all coming out at the same time, which is like a really unique mindset to have. But they're definitely the sound of the '90s. They sound like whenever you think about it, you're like, yeah, these guys in Candlebox and uh, Sevens Dust, and all of these grunge, alternative, post grunge. Uh, what's the word I'm looking for here? Alt rock uh, bands. They have that '90s sound. Created the sound of the '90s. Um, Inviting creativity in the room. That's what I have written down in my paper here. That's what I like to think about when we're radio talks for the universe. And he talks about how that's basically what writing a good song is like. You just sit down with the intentions of doing this thing, and you'll be amazed when it comes out. You never know what painting you can make until you sit down with a paintbrush and start actually painting the picture. And then you'll be surprised what comes out by the end of it. And that's exactly what good artists do whenever they're writing a song. They let the universe flow through them, just writing the song with their experiences and their actual life events that happen to them or around them, or from the perspective of a different human being, or from a perspective that everyone can relate to. Um, the guy asked them in an interview how they celebrated their first album success, and they didn't really have an answer, but their answer was they celebrated by working harder. I love that answer because it's like, there's just more work to do. It's like so arrogant, showboaty to be like, yeah, we made it, and then sit back and let that one hit wonder ride your rest of your life out. There's so many bands, not to name any names, but tons of bands that you guys can think of that did exactly that. They had their one hit or their one album hit, and then they slipped off the slopes because all they thought they had to do was ride out that success rather than think about it like, I still have work to do. I still have to keep working. I still have to keep like pushing myself forward to try to be, creative. Um, and they did that by performing more than 300 shows a year after their success. So proof's in the pudding. They can, say that, oh yeah, we're going to work hard, but they actually did work hard. They put in almost a show every single day, if you think about it, as far as numbers are concerned. Um, and they talked about how it doesn't matter how good the people are playing in the band. It's about the song, and that is so true because it doesn't matter. I mean, I can get together with people who've never played music, and we start clapping our hands and stomping our feet, and we can make a song in about 5 minutes. It doesn't matter how good you are to play music; it just matters about the song, the style, and matching your style to the song and your song to the style, rather than trying to create it into something that you're not. I want to be like Led Zeppelin, so I mimic their songs, which is all fine and good, but it's not being creative. It's not being truly creative because what art is not to take a Picasso and copy it and call it your own. It's to take influences from that artist and then paint your own picture. Um, Let me play some clips here for you guys.
I remember the first time I heard Kryptonite, I was in Los Angeles. Did you ever hear yourself in Los Angeles on K-Rock?
I don't think I really ever did.
It was pretty cool. I mean, I got a lot of phone calls. A lot of people thought it was us. They thought it was a new Candlebox track. And I was like, well, I wish it was. Great song. I mean, you started writing that in high school?
I did, man. I wrote it on high school algebra, and I used to be our drummer. I only became the singer because we didn't have a singer. That beat just came from just sitting on the desk.
It's great.
And I probably wrote that song in the length of time that it took me to write it down. It really was just one of those that kind of fell out of the sky. Once we got the structure of the song, that day at practice, it never changed from there.
All right, let's cut that off or we get a big old copyright infringement. Oh, gosh. That's one of the clips that I have right there. Yeah, and basically talks about how that song, it came to him. He didn't write that song. I believe that. I really do believe that's how some of the greatest songs are ever written. And if I believe that when we start to take credit for them, it's really egotistical because, You can give credit to your life and your experiences, but you can't give a little credit to the life that happened around you. And that's the influence of our music. It comes so much from the people around us and the bands we listen to and the way we were raised and the style of music that our parents listened to and stuff like that, right? Changes everything about how we view music and the world around us too, for that matter. Um, Let me play one more clip here.
In a perfect world, I'd always write lyrics first, but I'm thankful for these guys because the way that I hear that song with those lyrics in my head, it never winds up sounding like that in a finished product because it takes a band. I'm not a talented enough person to write a complete song by myself, nor do I think that even if I was talented enough to do it completely by myself, I know that it wouldn't turn out as well as it does with outside influence from another person.
Exactly what I've been speaking about on the past several of our shows. That these bands, it's hard enough to be able to be a band and get along and just be friends or just to play your musical instruments, but to be able to do both is a beautiful thing. And whenever you do what you're supposed to do and stay in your fucking lane and do what you do. If you're a singer, hey, go sing. Don't tell me how to be a guitarist. I'm a guitarist. What I bring to the table is playing a guitar, and I bring a whole knowledge of it. It's literally what I focus on. So you do your thing and let me do mine, and we can create one of the best rock bands in the world. And that's what these guys did, and it was obvious in the way they performed songs. Because whenever you get on stage, you're doing that language of music that I talk about. It's no other better way to put it. It's a language of music. It's talking without words, but using music to do it. I know when you're going to switch up. I know whenever your solo is going to drag out a little longer than usual because of the way it sounds. Because I know I've played with you so many times. We're like telepathic at this point. We know what the switch up is. We know when it's going to happen. We know when we can jam out on the song. We know when we need to keep it tight because of how long the song is. And there's the intricacies of musical intelligence that you really start to learn when you play music that can't be taught in a book. It can't be taught in a musical class. You have to learn on your own because it's finding your own way about how long the song should be, or the tempo of the song, or maybe the switch in the song, the switch in the tempos and the style. I talked about that with the Doors recently about how LA Woman is a perfect example of a great switch up in a song, totally switches the total vibe of the song. And for them to think to add that into their music, that's the artist discrepancy, but that's what makes a song better. It's like knowing when to stop adding too much paint to a painting because it becomes too oversaturated. That's what a great artist knows how to do. So they add just enough for you to get it into your mind and for it to look real without it becoming that looks too real. The same thing with the music. It's not too polished and too proper. It has its intricacies to it, especially when performed live. It's not a perfect song, and that's what's going to separate music, personal music, from AI music as we go on in time. Is that I like whenever I hear a guitar slip a pick or a drummer switch up the beat, or I like to hear these intricacies that are in the moment and only can be created by human mind because that's where it's coming from. This feels and emotions. It's not coming from logic. Or I talked about, maybe I did talk about this in the show. Maybe I didn't speak about this, but if I didn't, I'll mention this a couple more times about how there's people that play guitar and they're great musicians, but they're technical guitarists and they do a lot of like playing like this. What I want to see somebody do is exactly what they were saying. I don't care how good you are at playing the guitar. I want to see you feel the music. So this right here is a lot more appealing to me than this because it shows the dedication of the feel and the emotion flowing through them rather than just the technicalities. Because if it was technical, everyone could learn how to play guitar. But if it was by feels and emotions, we wouldn't get bands like Three Doors Down or The Doors or The Grateful Dead because those bands are playing totally on emotion. Listen to their lyrics. So all you have to do is listen to any of these songs I just named by Three Doors Down to totally get the emotion that they're trying to relay. I went on for a while. I think it's the longest episode maybe so far. I like this band though. This is like kind of the backbone of my music right here. Is this kind of alternative rock, post grunge, even grunge bands like Nirvana and Alice in Chains, Soundgarden, into Three Doors Down and Creed and Nickelback and stuff like that. These are the bands that, for me, that created my childhood. These are the bands that I grew up on. I was born in '97, so just before I was born, these guys were taking the stage just to create the sound of my childhood. Just like for most of you guys here in the chat, are a little bit older than me. these older bands have created your childhood sound. This is where drop it in the chat. And Cake, like I mentioned, for the found member passing away. And then after that, we'll finally be covering Haley Williams. It would have been nice to cover Haley Williams on Valentine's Day, but we're gonna skip it. I have respect for Brad. Cheers, buddy. And man, we'll be seeing you rocking in the fucking house whenever we get up to heaven, dude. Cheers. And next week we'll be doing Cake, and then after that we'll be doing Paramore. I have a huge list of bands, by the way. But if you guys want to see a band, just let me know in the chats or on Discord, and then I'll add it to my list, and we'll slowly go on as we go. Thank you guys for joining in. 1 second before I get out of here, let's check some comments real fast. I've been reading your comments along the way too. By the way, you guys, jeez, I'm not emotional. It's sad to see all these bands passing away. I think it just gets to a point where it's like, time goes on and these bands get older, and it's to the point where all these bands we grew up with, they're gonna get old and start passing away. And it's unfortunate, but keep in mind that the whole thing of this show is, I like to talk about old school bands and bring them to the new, but we're going to start talking about some new school underrated bands to bring them to people's attention too. So you guys can start, I don't want to say refilling these niches, but it's like, fills a little bit of the gap, replaces a little bit of the gap of missing Three Doors Down by listening to some of these new bands I'm going to mention, like Little Stranger and Prof, and on and on and on. There's a cool band called Up the Trees I want to talk about later on too. So some cool modern day bands that you guys may not have heard of, but if you listen to, might really enjoy. Yeah, I agree. When we play, we tap into something way bigger than us. Couldn't agree more, man. We're radio towers for the universe, no matter what we do. People equate it to channeling, being able to just like to let art flow through you. I believe we have emotions that are human, right? We have hunger, and we have like lust, and we have love, and we have hate, but I think when we're being creative, there's like something that's bigger than us. And if you ever wrote a song, and if you wrote music, you know that eventually you wrote a song where you didn't write that song. Somebody else wrote those lyrics, because there's no way you could have did that. And I'm just a guy. I don't have a band that I play with. I just write music on my own. But yeah. I saw the Stones at Bridgestone in 98. Cool. Bridges of Babylon tour with Sheryl Crow open for them. Yeah, I have that in my notes, buddy. When I covered Rolling Stones, I'm going to mention that. Crow was an unknown, and then she blew the crowd away. Cool. Yeah, I'm going to mention that in that whenever I cover the Rolling Stones. They're a little down the line, but we'll be covering them soon. So fortunately, we're going to only cover one band every Saturday because we move right along. It's going to take years to get through this show, so you guys better buckle up, because we'll be doing this for about 4 or 5 more years before we finally get through all the bands, and then we'll start doing some really obscure stuff. But shoot, if we just go through my playlist alone, we're going to be here for a while. I mean, lots of the bands that we just named: Sevens Dust, Linkin Park, Creed, Nickelback, Nirvana, STP, Alice in Chains, they're on and on and on. Black Sabbath, all these bands, great bands. This is just rock and roll alone. So I'm only scratching the surface, guys. I thank y'all for being here. If y'all like the show, let me know. Drop it in the comments. Let me know what I can do better. Let me know what bands you want to see. I thank you guys so much for showing up. We're going to do Jam Sesh here in just a second after the show. Me and a couple of the boys from Pop's Tea Crew are going to get together, and we're going to do a cover of Cumbersome by 783. So you guys stay tuned for that. It's going to be pretty cool. But yeah, come play out on we do Zoom jam session together. I'll send you a link. You can meet me over on Discord, Headbuster290, #8595. You can message me on there, or you can message me on Instagram at Headbuster290, all lowercase too, by the way, I should mention. That's my Instagram. Reach out to me on either one of those, or leave a comment in the chat and say, hey, reach out to me and I want to get your link for Zoom to do Jam Sesh HB, and then I'll send you a link and we can jam. Cool. Yeah, and maybe later on tonight, this afternoon, we'll be doing Minecraft. We do that as part of our $5 a month promotion on Mystic Journey. So yeah, come join us on that, you guys. Cheers. Y'all have a great day, and happy Valentine's Day too. Yeah, go spend some time with the loved one, and have a great day. Bye, everyone.